I've got a breathtaking game for you between Magnus Carlsen and Fabiano Caruana. So Fabiano Caruana of the United States, number 6 in the world. He challenged Magnus back in 2018 for the world title. World number 6, one of the top rated players in the world, playing the white pieces. And then we have Magnus Carlsen, world number 1 in all categories: rapid, blitz, and classical chess. Playing the black pieces is Magnus. And if you're not aware, Magnus has lost 2 games in this Tata Steel tournament. So the Tata Steel going on right now in Zee in the Netherlands. It's going on for a couple weeks. We have another week of games. There's 13 games. This is round 8. So Magnus Carlsen again playing the black pieces, Fabiano playing white here, and we'll go ahead and get right into the game. We have e4, e5, knight to f3, knight to f6, and then bishop to b5 makes this the Ruy Lopez opening. So an opening that's been played for many hundreds of years, at least since the 1500s in Ruy Lopez's time. We have the Morphy defense. So Paul Morphy, named after him, playing a6, chasing the bishop back to a4. We now have knight to f6 by the world champion, and Magnus goes ahead and castles. Interesting here, it's not a good idea to capture this pawn, although it appears to be hanging, because, well, the rook is going to come here, and you might try to defend your pawn, your knight or something like that. Eventually, though, the knight is going to be kicked, and then this pawn is going to be hanging as the knight and rook are joining forces here, and your king is not castled, so it is not usually captured here. So we have bishop to e7 here, and now that's not such a big threat, so you do have to defend, and so Caruana does defend, and this is, an opening that has been played tens of thousands of times to this particular spot in the game by the top masters in the world. We have pawn to b5 by Magnus, bishop back to b3 here, and then castles by the world champion. Pawn now to a4. This becomes the anti-martial defense, or the anti-martial variation. I did get smacked in the face by a shovel. I was shoveling out here, and I ran into my heavy shovel with my light shovel, and the heavy shovel smacked me, and I didn't even know what happened for a little bit. But anyway, it left a pretty good gouge on my face here. But anyway, the anti-martial attack with pawn to a4. We have pawn to b4 by Magnus, and now pawn to a5. And at this point, this game has only been played maybe several dozens of times in top master play. But this is all stuff that has been studied and has been played before. Pawn now to d6 by the world champion, and now pawn to c3 by Fabiano Caruana. We now have rook to b8 by Magnus, and pawn to h3 now. This is not the best move in the position. It would have been better to maybe go ahead and play pawn to d3 here, says the engine. So now this position has only been played 7 times, and this is also a bit of a strange move in the position, not the best move played by Magnus either. So this game has only been played 4 times in top level play. In most cases, bishop to c4 was played, so 3 out of 4 games, bishop c4. In the other game, bishop to d3 was played, but in this game, Fabiano Caruana strikes at the center with pawn to d4. So it is as of this move on move 12 that we have a brand new game, never been played before. B captures c3, best possible move, and Caruana goes ahead and plays B captures c3 as well. We have pawn captures on d4 by Magnus, and now knight captures is the best move for Caruana here. Knight captures on d4. Bishop now to d7. The computer likes bishop to b7 here better, but actually we'll see why Magnus moved his bishop here. He did want to keep pressure on this bishop here, And this ends up being a good thing later on. We'll continue with what happened in the position. Caruana now plays bishop to f4. That is the best possible move in this position. And now knight to e5 by Magnus. That star means it is the best possible move available. So knight e5 is the best move here. And now we have knight to a3 by Caruana. The engine does say bishop back to g3 would be best here. He's going to do that in a moment. Knight to a3 is just a good move. It's not the best move. It's a solid move. Good way to play here. Magnus now moves his rook to e8. And now we do see bishop back to g3 by Fabiano Caruana. Bishop now back to f8 seems like a strange move. It is the best move in the position. The idea is just to get that rook active on the e file and also keep an eye on this pawn here with the bishop at the same time. So now we'll go ahead and continue. We now have Fabiano Caruana playing pawn to f4 here, looking to kick the knight. Magnus moves that knight back to c6 now. And it's suggesting it would have been better to move it to the king side here. So playing knight to g6 instead would have been stronger, although knight to c6 is a good move as well. Caruana now plays pawn to e5, and now Magnus plays d captures e5. We have f captures e5 by Caruana, and now knight captures knight by Magnus. Pawn captures d4, or I should say c captures d4 by Caruana. And interestingly, this has the potential to become a pawn weakness. It's a backward pawn, or at least it could be. Right now, I guess technically he could push it forward if it was White's move, so it wouldn't be a backward pawn. But the fact that it has no friends back here, if it's not able to push forward, it's a backward pawn. That is a pawn weakness. I should have mentioned earlier it was an isolated pawn as it was sitting by itself over here on c3 for a while. But now it is a backward pawn, and Magnus finds the strongest move in the position. Absolutely brilliant, or, you know, just freezing this pawn now. Now there's 3 attackers controlling this square, and that is a problem. And it may look like, well, Magnus is just hanging his knight here. But you actually can't take that knight. And let's take a look at why that is. If you play pawn captures here, well, rook captures. And remember that we did want to keep this bishop. So Magnus was supposed to have put his bishop here, as said by the computer. But Magnus ended up going this way so that there's still pressure on this bishop. And so the queen can't capture the rook because she has to keep an eye on the bishop here. But if the bishop captures now, you can actually just go ahead and capture this bishop anyway. And if queen captures, then we have queen captures d4 with check, forking the king and the rook. So pretty amazing that that rook ends up hanging here. And yeah, after king steps out of the way, I'm not sure exactly what is best here. Black is just winning the position up a couple pawns. So that is why we could not play. That is why the f6 knight was not hanging. And Fabiano here, he spends quite a bit of time on his next move. If you look at the clock, he's got 56 minutes. Magnus has got an hour and 9. Fabiano did blast through the opening pretty fast. In fact, he was up like 10 minutes on Magnus at one point. But now he's been burning some time thinking of the moves recently. And he burns about 20 minutes on this move here, which is an absolute blunder in the position. He should have played rook to a3 or even bishop to f2 might have been a good way to go as well. And Magnus pounces on this move. See if you can maybe find the move that Magnus plays here. So maybe pause your videos for a moment and see if you can find the move that just really destroys the position. And it kind of does have something to do with this backward pawn, but what do you think Magnus played here? Hopefully you've paused your video if you want to find the move. But Magnus just plays queen to d5 here. And this is the best move in the position. And it's a bit brutal. I mean, just almost rude. Obviously threatening checkmate on g2. Well, Fabiano defends within just a moment. He plays a quick move almost instantaneously. He saw this coming. Yeah, just rook defends on g2, no problem. But the trouble is Magnus's next move here. How do you defend against rook to b4? There really is no defense here. It would have been nice to play bishop back to F2, but of course, you're not going to play that move here, right? Because, yeah, queen here would just be checkmate. You're interfering with the defense of your rook, so you can't play that move. Fabiano just decides to go ahead and move his king. Really not much can be done in the position. Says knight to B1 would have been a better way to play, although not that much better. This position is actually just lost now. These hanging pawns in the middle of the board are going to fall, and White's position just will crumble here. So Fabiano did spend 10 minutes on that last move, and now Magnus, of course, plays the best possible move in the position. Rook captures on D4. We have queen back to B1 by Fabiano. Best move he could play in the position. And now Magnus actually doesn't play the best move here. He plays knight to E4 here. But let's actually look at this other variation. Rook to D2 would have been a better way to play. So we'll take a look at that now. So Magnus should have moved his rook down to D2. Best for white would be to capture. Queen captures, threatening checkmate once again. So queen would move back to F1. Knight then attacks the bishop on G3. And white would need to get their bishop safe to B3 here. Also threatening attacks here. And this position would be much better for Magnus. It's pretty much unplayable. If you look at the evaluation bar, it's saying Magnus is up 3.5 points. He would probably like to capture this bishop and win this pawn, but you got to be careful about possible perpetual checks with queen captures here. If you go back, then yeah, the queen could come in here and chase the king out. So you got to worry about that, but this is really not a defensible position for Fabiano Caruana. Not what happened on the board, though. Let's go back to what Magnus actually played in the game. So Magnus actually played knight to E4 here, which is also winning. He's still totally winning this position with knight to E4. He did spend a good 10 minutes calculating this move, but not the strongest way to play. Let's continue. We have bishop captures on E4 by Caruana. Now rook captures E4 by Magnus. Rook captures E4 by Caruana. And now queen captures E4 by Magnus. White captures on E4 with the queen as well. And now bishop captures on E4. Boy, that was a bloody square, that E4 square. And now we have knight to C4 by Caruana. This is the best move he can play in the position, but Magnus plays the best move as well. Just rook to B8 here. We have rook to C1 by Caruana, and now rook to B5 by Magnus. Pawn to E6 by Caruana, saying this is an inaccuracy. Instead, knight to E3 would have been best, but there's really not much that Caruana can do at this point. Magnus goes ahead and captures the pawn. Best possible move is F captures on E6. And now bishop caps pawn on C7 by Caruana. And Magnus plays rook to C5, attacking the bishop. Bishop back to F4 by Caruana, and now bishop to D5 played by black, attacking the knight for the second time. So the knight moves back to B6 here, and now Magnus trades rooks with rook captures on C1, bishop captures on C1, but now bishop to B5. It is on this move, on move 35, that number 6 in the world, Fabiano Caruana, playing the white pieces, does resign the game. And yeah, there's no way for him to have a chance in this position, especially playing against number 1 in the world. So it does make sense that he resigned. It does make sense that he resigned the game. If he would have continued, best play would be just to go ahead and capture on D5. Pawn would capture back. King should get active, but then bishop captures here. And yeah, Magnus has got a couple of extra passed pawns here. And the fact that they have the same color bishops, black should be able to defend his pawns and push them down the board. As long as both players do activate their kings, yeah, there's no way that white could defend this position. So it does make sense that Fabiano Caruana resigns this position. And now Magnus has won 2 straight games. So he lost 2 straight games, kind of shocking the world. And now he has won 2 straight games, putting himself in even position with Fabiano Caruana. So him and Fabiano, I think they're tied for like 3rd place or something like that at this point. I think they each have 4.5 games out of 8, where Abu Sharaf, the 18-year-old, actually has 6 out of 8. So Abu Sharaf is still leading the Tata still. But yeah, anyway, thank you for joining me for that. I hope you enjoyed it. Please subscribe, as I will be covering all of the decisive games from this year's Tata Steel, as well as reviews of other tournaments and whatnot. So please let me know if there's a tournament you think I should be covering that I'm missing. Yeah. Anyway, thank you for joining me. Take care, everybody. See you in the next one. Bye-bye.